Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Today, we're going to continue the series Bytes of Impact with this topic of elevating your brand experience, where we'll take a look at the 5 trends within tech and design. So today, we're going to take you through this. My name is Matthias. I work here at Impact as a front-end experience specialist, which means I work exactly within the field of both tech and design. I come from an education background in UX design, and then I pivoted into development, which I've done professionally for 6 years now. So my passion really lies exactly in this field. So I'm really excited to talk to you today. And with me is Nikolai.
Yeah, hello and good morning. I'm Nikolai. I work as a digital designer here at Impact. Working as a digital designer here means that I'm working within a very broad field, from prototyping to pitching and creating design system as well. Also, I do create experiences for our customers, of course, with their brand in mind. But I also do assist our user experience designers with visualizing digital concepts, and lastly, I assist our development department with clarification and design as well. So I think we'll just go ahead and begin with the agenda, Matthias. I think you're muted, Matthias.
Yeah, so a look at today's agenda. We'll be taking a look at the 3 topics. First of all, why does brand experience matter? This is where Nikolai will take you through the actual values behind taking a look at this in the first place. Now, secondly, we'll take a look at 5 emerging trends that we see now and going forward that are quite interesting within the field of brand experience. And lastly, we'll take a look at how we can integrate tech and design closer in developing brand experience and implementing it really nicely. So we're really excited to talk to you about that. If you do have any questions along the way, please feel free to ask them in the chat, and we'll get to them in the end. So thank you for your time, and let's start with the first section, Nikolai.
Yeah, I think we should begin this session with what brand experience is and why it's so important. So if you just go ahead and take the next slide. It's important because it's what sets you apart from your competitors. It's a unique visual language that only your brand possess, which makes you memorable to your desired audience. And just a little disclaimer, these examples are not great branding experience. Actually, they're quite the opposite of great brand experiences. In fact, this is templates that we are watching right now, Bootstrap templates, I think. And it just goes to show that there are great templates out there for new and small businesses with very few resources that helps them get started very quickly, generating business, and to some extent that is fine. But the amount of retailers on the web are growing every day, and that's why you risk becoming just another fish in the pond, like the image show here. You can focus so much on having good products, tailored user experience, and upping your SEO, but you still risk easily being forgotten. And that's something you don't want to risk as a company. And that's why you need to make your brand memorable. And this image may be simplifying the case a little, but it describes the very essence of brand experience. You need to stand out, and you need to be simple and clear. Otherwise, no one will understand you. And you shouldn't fall in the trap of just being different to be different. To put it as Jonathan Ive, former Apple designer, the thing is, it's very easy to be different, but it's very difficult to be better. Better meaning being prepared with a strategy and communication that resonates with within your organization and with your audience as well. Once you've done that, you can create a clear, unique, and memorable visual language, which becomes your brand. But the thing is, there is not one recipe. It's not easy and takes effort. But one thing you need to be 100% sure about is that you're 100% committed to the strategy and the visual language you decide to create. And there's a little bonus on the way. You get to know yourself and your audience. Because in order to resonate with first your organization and then your audience, you need to identify some goals and general principles. It could be things like the US unique selling proposition, your emotional selling proposition, but it differs from company to company what you choose to focus on. But what it does to your organization, it makes you internally aligned. It makes you align with your audience. You can do that from interviews, personas, or customer journeys. We have great user experience designer who does this for our customers. And when done properly, it gives you a common ground to steer your brand. But another very important thing to remember, it's not necessarily step one. This is a brand experience, and doing brand experience is a tool among other initiatives like SEO and user experience and etc. And some brands like Amazon and eBay even do well without. We even have the Danish retailer Coolshop, who doesn't really do that much brand wide, but has a great variety of products, and by that has a very great edge compared to its competitors. But these strengths might be harder or costly to achieve. You need to have either a unique product or a heavy focus on sales. But my dog has just found his toy. But what brand experience could help you with is give you a deep tie to your audience and make them remember you. And this is actually what we are going to look at today. Some brands that are doing very good within that field and utilizing the latest within tech and design to achieve great brand experiences. So I think we'll just head over to you, Matthias, again.
Yeah, so next up, we'll take a look at the 5 emerging trends that we've kind of focused in on within this field. Of course, you could highlight many more and different ones, but these are the ones that we want to take a look at today. So we're pretty excited, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the first one. So the first one is 3D experiences.
Yeah, and many of you have seen 3D experiences before. It's not new at all. The technology has been around for some time. However, developing browser support and better hardware gives it a new or helps it popularize very much within the digital field at the moment. And maybe a little in the past year, it's been sparked by the corona and the physical restriction, creating a new need for creating a close to reality experience online instead of the physical stores. And what it gives you digitally, it gives you the best experience in order to see the textuality and the detail of your products. And I think we should just go ahead and look at some great examples, Matthias.
Yeah, so first up, we have one that we just recently did with Montana, a Danish furniture design brand. And this is an example of a 3D experience you might have stumbled upon a lot on the web for the past actual many years. It's a pretty commonplace these days, and we're seeing it become even more so. It's this experience where you can drag 360 around a product in a predefined circle. So it's not like you can go on any viewpoint you want to go with. It's just this circle that you have access to. And the way this usually works under the hood is actually just a series of images. In this case, we have 32. We partnered with a company called Solindo into doing all of Montana's products in 3D. So they did these in 3D programs and really focused on actually highlighting these specific details and getting them just right, and then rendering them out into these 32 images. And then they kind of drive this 3D experience. Now, you've seen it a lot on the web with photos as well. You can actually do this with turntable rigs that take photos of your actual physical product as well. So this is a relatively cost-effective way to do a 3D experience, and that's why we're really seeing it a lot, just as the base level of what you can really do. Now, obviously, this isn't true interactive 3D, as you might know from a game, because all the viewpoints are predefined, and depending on how many viewpoints you actually choose to give yourself, technically, you can also, if you drag really slowly, you can see it's kind of jumping from one image to the next. So it's obviously not a complete true 3D experience, but it's definitely a cost-effective way to get there. And that's why we're seeing it's become pretty popular. Now, if we want to take it a step further, you can go with something like what Velux did here in The Biggest Change. Velux is a Danish window manufacturer, and they've done this experience where they actually have these houses you can interact with and go in and check the effects of skylights in different types of homes. So they take a lot of inspiration from architectural visualization in the way that they render the light. They really pay attention to how the light bounces around in the room with skylights, as you see here, and without. So you really can see the difference of adding skylights to a living space. They also actually let you choose to see the light at dawn or even at night, just to get a feel of the room. Now, the way this is done under the hood is actually quite similar to what we just saw with the 360 predefined circle, in that this is just predefined viewpoints with little animatics between them. So really, you can't go anywhere like in a true 3D game that you want to go. You can only go to the predefined spots that they've chosen. And this is, again, a really cost-effective way to get this. So you can do the whole space in 3D and you can get the details just right. And then you can render that out into video clips or images that are kind of mixed in this way that it becomes like a predefined decision tree that you can go through. So technically, again, this is pretty cost-effective. It's effectful nonetheless. And it's really a way to get into 3D without actually having to do actual real 3D game-like development. Now, I keep saying it's not true 3D. Now let's take a look at something that is true 3D. This is really taking it a step further even, is this Dutch electric bicycle brand called VanMoof. And here they've done a real 3D model of their product. And you can go around and zoom into details. You can really interact with it and click on buttons. And even though they have these predefined spots that you can focus in on, you kind of still control the perspective a little bit. So this is really a true 3D experience like you would know from a game. So they really take this opportunity to explain the key features of their product with this video, going along and explaining what things do and how the locks work. And as you see here, you can also take a look at trying to steal the bike and see how theft defense actually works, and that's something they focused a lot on their specific product. So this is really taking it a step further, and it's a really interesting way. And this is especially the thing we're seeing boom right now, because this really gives the user the complete and full 3D experience, so they can really go around and check the product out. So under the hood, this is obviously much more involved. This is very, very much akin to actual game development. It's the same tools that are used. It's 3D models, it's textures, it's lighting, it's shaders. There's a lot of things going on that actually belong in the realm of game development. And we're really seeing this boom a lot, and it gives these really, really rich experiences. So if you have a product that you really want to focus on and you want to go the extra mile, this is definitely an interesting approach. So yeah, taking a look at the next thing that we're actually seeing emerge is quite related to 3D experiences, because it's augmented reality, which is just in itself a kind of 3D experience.
Yeah, and look at this happy guy. He's out catching Pokemons in the real world through his screen. And that is actually what augmented reality is, or in short, AR. It's the lightweight version of virtual reality. But what it does is it creates this digital realities within, through your screen within the real world. And it's something that became very popular with Pokemon Go back in 2016. I don't know if you saw that as well, but there was a lot of people just walking around with the screen up in their face. And what is quite funny about Pokemon Go back in time, it has had this AR mode where you could in your screen catch Pokemons in the world that you were standing in. But the thing is, it didn't really create value in terms of gameplay. But it enhanced the game experience a lot. Therefore, became a big selling point for Pokemon Go. So it maybe, what can you say? It's a bit gimmicky, but still creates value in the sense that it creates an experience, and that is what branding experience does. And therefore, we are seeing retailers adapting this. And of course, the technology is getting better as well. So maybe in the Corona times, as we are in at the moment, it's a great way to achieve something you not necessarily could in the digital space. But let's have a look at what and shop like Wannakicks are trying to do with their Explore New Sneakers app. What they're doing here is actually making a shop in an app and using the features of AR in order for their customers to test out their shoes, and that is actually a great solution to a common problem for customers when being on the internet, and therefore it creates great value. But the thing is, it's a native app, so it requires a lot of engagement. It's not like you can just browse from Google and get started with this. You need to download the app and really engage yourself in this experience. But there are examples like the Gucci gift giving app or website. It's quite new, but it's done on the web and makes it way more available or accessible. You can see the tech is not as advanced as with the other app, but it surely does create value, though still a little gimmicky. But you can move it around. You could put it together with some accessories that you have at home, or even see how it pairs with an outfit that you have on. And I think we'll see a lot more of this in the coming years. And maybe Matthias, you have some info about this technically as well, right?
Yeah, well, basically, it's what you said, that in terms of AR, the mobile platform has always been slightly ahead of the web. So when you're deciding on which augmented reality experience you want to create, you really need to decide on which platform you want to do it. On mobile, you can see the Wannakicks example, they actually have like a custom algorithm running that actually tracks where your foot is and then fits the shoe onto that and tries to really do that well. Whereas on the web, we're not quite there yet, just out of the box where we can do that yet. So still on the web, we have this placement API here. You can see on iOS, and it also works on Android, which lets you place objects statically in your environment. So that's really what we have at the moment, just out of the box. Obviously, you can do some custom things to get further, but still we're quite limited. But the main advantage of the web is, like Nikolai said, it's very discoverable. It doesn't require any installs. So if you really want your users to stumble upon an augmented reality experience, the real good way to do that is through the web, because it's very low buy-in for the user. They do not have to install anything. It just works on their device by just visiting the website. So this is a huge advantage on the web, even though the feature set might be more limited than on mobile. But again, this is something, we have a talk coming up on mobile mobile experiences in general. And I think they'll be touching more on that in that webinar later this month. Yeah, so the next thing we really see here trending is branded user interfaces.
Yeah, and it's something that we've seen grow a lot in popularity the last couple of years. And what it is it's actually a fight against the standardized way of thinking design, like design systems, for example, the Google Material Design System, and generally the standard way of thinking design, like Bootstrap and Squarespace. So it's often branded user interfaces are often something we see in general layout, transition, forms, input fields, buttons, and micro interaction as well. And these are these are components that the users are interacting with a lot, especially within the field of commerce. Therefore, it has a great impact in in how your audience remember you. But the thing is, because it's something that your users are interacting with a lot, it's important that you tread lightly, playing around and not doing the standard way of creating buttons and so on. Because if it becomes an obstruction, it can also become a conversion killer. Um, and that's why we see a lot of brand select specific use cases for these types of components. It might be in a lookbook, or that is something we see a lot with fashion brands, but also you can use it on campaign sites. But there are also examples of some that go all the way. But let's start with a lightweight example. It's the newly released website from the Grene sisters, Danish retailer, and what they're actually done is taking some of the spirit and feel from their physical stores, which they have done well with the last many years, and adopting it to their online store. It's currently very lightweight, but you see there are some good initiatives going on, and it's also because it's a first release of the website. I think we're going to see a lot more. You see these custom icons, the small quirky illustration throughout the site, and it's something we'll see a lot more of the next couple of years, I think. Another great example is the Dutch store Fem and Fierce, which is a retailer specializing in female clothing. They have a very feminine universe. You see the red instead of white background, small quirky gifs that appears within upon when you hover the images, and it's rooted within the main values, and it just creates this memorable experience of the shop. I first saw it, I think, for a year ago, and I haven't got it out of my head yet. So they're doing something very well. An example of someone that goes all the way is Hen København with this Excel kind of experience. You see, this is a brand that says we want to be the Excel sheet and go all the way with it. And that's a great example of a brand staying 100% committed to the visual language, from layout to fonts and interactions and so on. But the aesthetic might not be for everyone. So that's clear prioritization, which might hurt conversion a bit, and might also hurt the page speed a little. I experienced a very slow site when browsing here, but at least it creates a very memorable experience, and every time someone mentions an Excel store, we know who you're speaking of. Another example of that is the Cartoon Network Studio site. I know this is not a retailer, but it's a great example of a website that are 100% committed to the visual language, and it shows very well with these quirky animations and a very playful user interface throughout the whole site, that you can come very long brand-wise when every aspect of the site is rooted within your core values. And I think this site is very funny and a fun experience to go through.
Yeah, in these terms of branded UI, I really see one of the main benefits being that users will really engage with your brand in a whole different way. As you say, some might be turned off by it, so you really need to get the balance right, as you might say. But if you do, you can really actually get people to just spend a bit more time on your site just by experiencing it, which is one of the real main selling main selling points of this. So yeah, let's take a look at the fourth trend that we see happening, which is variable fonts.
Yeah, and speaking of branded user interfaces, a lot of significance can be put into typography generally when working with brands. And there's a new thing, or a new girl in the hood. It's the variable fonts, and what they're actually achieving is elevating the traditional typography from its grave, from being a passive asset to be with predefined weights like light, regular, and bold. You no longer need to settle for this as a designer when doing a new brand or redoing a brand. The thing it does is makes everything doable within typography. That is, let's have an example of a variable font and how it works. It's a new type of font that in reality comes in hundreds of weights. It lets you configure the font just as you want it. You can tweak on parameters like size and weight, whiteness, height, optical presentation, even if it should be a serif or non-serif, with the legs at stems. And there's also the possibility to go to the extreme with this example from Grillitype, presenting their new variable font, Grillitype Flexa. You can use these configurations with the whiteness, thickness, and so on actively in your design and communication. You can do that through animation, controlling how they move and animate. It's not really seen that much on the internet as of yet, because it's actually quite new, but I think you will see a lot of this in the coming years. And here's another example with a variable font that has a lot of configuration possibilities. You can adjust the center and the center as well. So it's almost like creating your own font tailored just to fit the brand you're working on.
Yeah, so the technical reason we're really seeing this rising right now is that we reached a critical point in terms of browser support. So currently we're at 92% of users worldwide browsing in a browser that actually supports the variable font format, which means that you can really now begin to wonder if your next font should be variable. And as Nikolaj says, this is really underutilized at the moment. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how people will use this in the future, either to animate fonts like we've seen, or in more subtle ways where you might have previously loaded a couple of fonts. You can now load just one and then actually save a few bytes of bandwidth doing it this way. So there are subtle ways to use this as well. It's a really interesting technology and something we'll be seeing much more of in the future. Now, something we also will be seeing much more of in the future is our fifth trend, sustainability, which is really a counter movement to much of what we've just seen in different trends. So this is really about limiting how much of emissions we're really seeing from internet usage. So we'll focus on how you can approach sustainability from a design and tech perspective. Now, some estimates say that the internet emits around 3.7% of CO2 emissions per year, which is roughly equal to the amount the airline industry emits. So it's really a huge thing, this actually here. It's primarily because of data centers running servers that will be running on carbon-based energy. And that's kind of the main culprit behind this. So really, if you do want to focus on sustainability, hosting is really a key point to look at. Now, green hosting, like just truly green hosting, has been a movement for some time. It's still kind of a niche market, and really getting a truly green host requires you to jump through a lot of hoops, and maybe not going with the hosting provider providing the best global service. But luckily, we are also seeing the big players. We have the big three here: Google Cloud, Azure, and Amazon Web Services. Really, they're on board this now. These numbers are from a Wired article a couple of years ago, taking a look at how they're approaching sustainability in the ways that they are moving towards using only renewable energy for their data centers, as well as trying to become a carbon neutral, and when they have those goals in mind, as well as what technologically innovative things they're doing to actually reach these goals. And some of the goals are actually quite ambitious. Microsoft Azure in the middle here has actually dedicated themselves to become carbon negative by 2030. And Microsoft as a whole are actually working towards offsetting all of their historical emissions since their founding in 1975. So companies, the big companies, are really taking this really serious now, but it's obviously still moving along at a slow pace. So if you want to go 100% green now, you really need to do your research, and it requires a lot of dedication. Obviously, there are options within these hosters as well. There are tools to calculate how much your servers emit, and then you can offset your emissions at least. That's one way to approach it. Now, another way to approach sustainability is through minimizing bandwidth usage, which really also puts less load on the servers, but also less load on the data centers of internet providers across the globe. So those things that you usually need to do to minimize bandwidth are pretty much what Google PageSpeed is about, which is about serving less JavaScript, less video, less images, and really compressing things the right way and working really to optimize your site for speed as well, which is a huge benefit also. Now, this is really hard in the field of e-commerce because we obviously need a lot of images usually. We need feature-rich front ends, we need lots of content, and we also need a lot of tracking scripts that come in through something like Google Tag Manager in order to actually do our marketing tracking. So in the field of e-commerce, we have to dedicate ourselves a lot and take a lot of commitment to actually reaching good scores in this. So it's something that you need dedicated development time to really reach. So again, here, sustainability does not come for free, as well as speed doesn't come for free either. But when you do, you can really see users also engaging with their site much more because it's faster. So there are benefits as well. Now, we could just take an example of someone really taking sustainability to an extreme.
Yeah, and it's the new player or pioneer of the field within sustainable commerce. It's Organic Basics that created this low impact concept and manifesto to go with it. And yeah, as Matthias mentioned, they're taking it all the way, as you see here. Images are removed and replaced by icons or pictograms, or what you like to call them. And this just shows that it comes with a lot of compromises. Surely you can press, you need to press as a user actively to see images, and when they appear, it's in low resolution. And that's because images, and especially videos, are heavyweights when it comes to data transfers. So it comes with a lot of compromises to do this and go all the way with it, but it's something surely to consider, although not necessarily going all the way. But at least this is a brand position not really occupied that much within the online sphere. So it's maybe a great way for your brand to stand out as a digital, responsible and sustainable brand.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. We just saw the last part of the video that they also have their regular site. So it's not just a low impact website. They also have the regular site. And this, I really think, speaks to that you kind of need to take a lot of hits in terms of experience to do this. So they're not going fully that on board. They're kind of doing both. So it's a real pioneering field, this as well, and they're not completely in, and I completely get that as well, because it would be a tall ask for them to only have their low impact website. But still, looking at their low impact website, it's pretty cool that that they also kind of put in your face how much of impact loading an image would take. So it's really interesting. Yeah, so this was our fifth trend and final trend. Now we'll go to part 3, where we'll take a look at how we can integrate tech and design further. Now, the key when we need to integrate tech and design is really working across competencies. So in all the trends that we highlighted here today, they really need both of tech and design to kind of be implemented and work fully. So we need T-shaped people to work together, as you might say. If you know the term of T-shaped people, the stem of a T, the stem is kind of the deep knowledge that a person has of a specific field, and the top of the T is the wide spectrum of their general knowledge. Now, this is really effective when we can place T-shaped people together that kind of have overlapping general knowledge, but differing specific fields of knowledge. So if we can get all hands on deck like this and work together, we can be truly agile and receive much better results. Now, tech evolves all the time, obviously, and how we work with it should too. So we as professionals in the web, where we kind of mostly operate, the web has always changed. It's actually, in technical terms, fairly new. The types of developers that we've needed on the web has already changed a lot in the lifetime of the web, and how we define them are constantly changing. And I think we should just, to get an idea of the technical approach that we do in web, we should take a quick tour of the history of web development to see how we're reaching the point now where we're kind of approaching integrating tech and design further. So if we go way back to the founding of the web, originally the web was quite simple. You as a single developer were completely able to master the entire skill set to actually develop a website. This is old school web development, just a single developer doing a site. And it's actually still true to some extent on smaller projects today. This can be done, but obviously in e-commerce and many more advanced areas, we've moved beyond this. And what has happened over time is that kind of the spectrum of skill set required for web development has grown as the web has evolved. And it's grown to the point where it kind of stretches beyond what one developer can master. And now what happened previously was that kind of the field needed to split up. So we split it up into two areas where we kind of defined, okay, we have a server domain happening all these data centers, data transfer, all these things. And then we have the browser domain, what the user sees, the visuals on the site. So this kind of became the basis for the established division of labor that we know today, which is backend development, working on the server, and frontend development, working primarily in the browser. Now, what has happened lately in the last few years is that frontend development has really grown a lot. We see a much more expansion here. We see interactive app-like and complex experiences that really need a lot of the business logic that previously was on the backend. It's slowly actually becoming front-end development instead. So we're really at a point now where we're seeing front-end development stretch to the point where it's too wide. So really what we've seen now is that we need a new role yet again. We have a new domain all the way out here to the right, which is a domain that we kind of define as the UI, the user experience, the domain of developing this optimally. And what we've come to define here as a new role is what we call a UX engineer. In other places, it's known as a UI engineer, a creative developer, or even a creative technologist. These are all terms for kind of the same idea that we need someone out there on the forefront of the user interface, developing that and really tweaking that optimally. Now, this has huge benefits because now we kind of set free some space to branch outside what just defines web development and really communicating, if we take a look to even go further right, what digital designers like my colleague Nikolai here is doing and user experience designers, which we also have, to really looking to bridge the gap between development and design. So this means doing prototyping, working with design systems, animations, micro animation interactions, and really realizing all the things that in the end build up better brand experience. And this is really the true power of a UX engineer, being able to focus on this area specifically. So to summarize really, what is a UX engineer? Well, a UX engineer is a developer, first and foremost. Their skill set emerges from development, such as front-end development. They are really proficient in technology, but the key difference is that they use it primarily for creative or visual means. So this means that they really truly focus on developing what designers do. They have a background working with design or designers and have a keen eye and passion for design, branding, and user experience and all these things. So in essence, you can say a UX engineer builds experience primarily, which means that they understand the importance of consistent thought through design language. They really revel in closer compatibility with design. They really like to structure their UI related code, just like their designers structure their layout files, which means we can have much higher agility because we work kind of in the same way. We think alike, and we can prototype and iterate alongside designers much better. This also works with UX insights gathered through workshop, field analysis, and more. Having a UX engineer who really understands the values that the user put first will really help when we implement the small details that aren't quite defined in a static design, microinteractions, and all the things that we need to define once we implement things. When we can do that with the end user in mind, with the knowledge that it takes to really consume user insights, that also gives much better quality in the end. So really what we've seen in the last few years is that UX engineers have started appearing across the tech industry. We've seen it from the big companies first, like Google, Apple, and Microsoft, but we're kind of seeing it appear all over the place now. These positions do not just appear in web development, it's basically any type of development. We're seeing it on mobile and native app, and even Facebook have UX engineers assigned to their virtual reality teams developing user experience inside virtual reality. So really this doesn't confine itself to just one specific technology. A UX engineer can work with whatever they know, and their skill set is really working with experience. So what we're doing now at Impact is that we're actually adding UX engineers to our teams now, because we really see the role that they will have in realizing great brand experience going forward. Because we really constantly remind ourselves that we are here to build better brand experiences. And the way that we see UX engineers doing this is just yet another way to keep pursuing this in the future. So it's a really interesting time for brand experience right now in development.
Yeah, and the fact is that a lot of what we showed you earlier in this webinar wouldn't be achievable without this new role within the field. So we're a bit off behind schedule, but let's just jump ahead. If anyone has questions out there, please. We have answered some on along the way, but if you have any questions now, please make sure to write them in the chat.
Yeah. So while you guys think of questions, we can maybe take a quick poll as well, because we just really would like to know which of these 5 trends that we've highlighted today is something that you would find interesting to explore. So if you guys want to answer that, go ahead and do that as well. And then maybe if something is hugely popular, we'll look into hosting a webinar on that specifically itself later. But it would just be really interesting to see your thoughts on that as well. And also, yeah, just go ahead and ask your questions in the chat if you have any. At the moment, 58% of you really like the branded user interfaces. And next up is sustainability, followed closely by 3D experiences and augmented reality. So it's really nice getting your feedback on what you find interesting. A branded user interface is even rising more now.
Yeah, 60% now. And it's yeah, that's great. Also a very exciting trend that we're seeing. And actually, it's from a technical perspective, it's actually quite easy to implement on your website. It doesn't require that much technology as with augmented reality and 3D experiences. It might be a great topic to get in the deeps of in the future. Yeah,
it's definitely something that we've kind of always been able to do, but it's once again one of those things that is very underutilized in order to stand out. And I think in this day and age where Bootstrap and Squarespace and many others actually provide kind of the same look and feel, that there is ample opportunity here to really make your brand stand out. So I agree, this is a very interesting approach to things, and it's really just about doing it. And it doesn't require any cutting edge technology per se. But yeah, just to those who haven't checked out the chat, we will share these slides afterwards. And we will also, in the slides, there were links to all the examples that we showed as well.
Yeah, you
So
find them in the left bottom of every slide. Also, I think our marketing people will make sure to send this webinar on demand as well. You know,
yeah,
always go back and have a look.
yeah. So you can see the poll results right now are up at your screens. So there's a huge interest in branded user interfaces, followed closely by sustainability, which is thanks for your feedback. Well, if there are no more questions, then we'll say thank you for joining us today. Please make sure to check out some of the upcoming webinars that we have coming.
Well, we have one question, Matthias, I see.
There's
It's
another,
maybe within your field.
Yeah. Oh, if the educational institutions, whether they are catering for the need for UX engineers. Well, this is it's an interesting question. What I usually find is that educational institutions have a really hard time keeping up because things change a lot in tech these days, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I just think that's probably comes with the territory. But what really is interesting is that we have in Denmark, at least, we have had enough educations that people kind of fall into these roles once they actually reach into the professional realm as well. So I don't think there is necessarily a need for this, but I still think it should be something that we should probably look into if educational institutions are willing to actually kind of address these things that say, okay, you might be studying something called a web integrator. I think we have, well, maybe just letting their students know that, okay, there are these many roles out there that you might end up falling into. And that would probably be interesting for some to know ahead of time and to really kind of focus in on. But I think the main thing you should focus on is doing what you do as a developer great, and then worrying about roles later on. Because again, the UX engineer is a new thing, and there are different companies doing it differently. So I think it would be risky to just kind of settle on one way to structure educational institutions on this, simply because people and companies differ. Yeah.
By those words, I think we'll end this webinar for today. Make sure to sign up for especially these 3 webinars coming up. In February actually, and we do also have this great webinar in April, which will be in Danish. Just a little disclaimer.
Yeah, I can see there's another question popping in now. We can just answer that as well. Whether the UX engineer is replacing a UX or digital designer or working side by side. It really depends on your team. Some companies actually have them kind of encompass the role of designing as well. In the States specifically, this is kind of a very popular approach to have them kind of work as designers also while developing. It depends on your team and your need really, and the scale you want to take this to. Because obviously, if you want a small team and you have someone in that unicorn role really being able to both develop and design, then sure, go ahead and do that. But what I oftentimes find is that it's probably better, again, talking about T-shaped people, to have someone really knowledgeable about a specific field and then having general knowledge. So that's why we at Impact keep all 3 roles, because we really believe that that brings the most value, and that's something that we can really put a stamp of approval on. Whereas if we're stretching people too thin, it might not work out as well. Yeah. Great.
Well, thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Have a great day, everybody.
Yeah. Have a great day. Bye.
Yeah, bye.